Welcome to the Sacred Emergence Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Wong, and I'm so thrilled that you're here. This is a place where you'll be guided to living your most aligned life so that your truest, most radiant self can emerge. We'll be jamming on topics ranging from spirituality, entrepreneurship, to wellness and lifestyle design, and everything in between that can support you to grow, evolve, and shine, all the while not taking ourselves too seriously. So if you're ready to step into your leadership, break through limiting beliefs, own all of who you are, and expand in abundance, grab yourself your faith cup of tea and let's dive in. Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Sacred Emergence. It's Michelle Wong here, and today we have a wonderful guest with us, Dr. Chelsea Page, who is a self-love and intimacy coach. Welcome, Chelsea.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Me too.
Super excited.
So you and I actually just probably known each other for like a month-ish through our coach. Yeah, every time I say Melanie, I have to say it twice because like I totally fumble her name, but Melanie Enlayer, and she's just been such a bomb.
Oh my goodness. Yes. And I can't believe it's only been a month. I feel like I've known you forever. It's kind of weird.
I love it. I know. Like when I just saw like your comments fly through, like when we were all the lives, I was like, I like her. Like I want to get to know her more. And so I reached out to you, and I just love your work and what you stand for. And so, yeah, I'm so excited that you are here. And today we're going to talk about relationships, emotions, all the good stuff, and just dive deeper into this topic.
I am so excited. And it's such an interesting time to, I think, dive into the topic as well. And just managing, I don't know, I feel like just managing all emotions within yourself and, between you and a partner, and just like from yourself and just everything that we do in our lives. And I don't know, it can be really tricky sometimes, but also when you learn how to navigate it, it can be so strengthening and so rewarding and so amazing at the same time. It's our expansion process, right?
Totally. Yeah. And I think like, especially with us more recently, just with our own experiences and just our journey in business and then managing our own personal lives, it's like the thing that I think you and I are both leaning into is like, how do we walk with all of the emotions, right? Because like for me, it's like, can I be happy if this is happening in my life, if I'm experiencing grief and loss? And if I'm like, it's like, or should I, if I'm happy about my business, can I be sad for this? Like, it's like somehow we can only have one emotion, right?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I've been totally experiencing that too. Like this morning, because I applied to a bunch of government support for my business, and also on a personal level. I'm not going to go into all the details, but I'm also going through a grief process myself. And so there's sadness that's in my body, but then I just got a huge chunk of money dumped into my account this morning for my business. So that was like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. But I'm also experiencing grief, but I'm also excited. And sometimes I feel like, sometimes it might feel like we have to like compete, like our emotions have to compete for space inside of our bodies and our lives. And I don't think that's the case. I feel like we can experience that all, but we're also not taught how to do that. Like I don't know, I feel like for the longest time, and this has been part of my own personal journey, is really being able to navigate my own internal world and the emotions that are there, and giving space for all of it and not getting lost in one emotion. I think that's what happens when one kind of dominates and kind of pushes the others out, is when we get like bombarded by one emotion and lost in it. And sometimes we don't know how to find our way out, even if it's a good or bad emotion. Not that emotions are bad.
Right. Just like the ickier ones.
Yes. The ones that aren't as pleasant.
Yeah. Yeah. As you were saying that, I was like, if there's so many of the emotions that are coming up, it's like, is it worth trying to focus on like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to focus on the happy one. But if we do that, are we like bypassing the lessons that need to be learned through like the sadness, the anger, the like, whatever is happening. And so what do you suggest?
I think that's just even that word bypassing. I think that's what often, especially with the more, I love that you said icky. I use that word a lot too. Especially with the more like icky emotions like grief or pain or anger, frustration, sadness, the ones that are uncomfortable to be in, is we oftentimes bypass them, or, we avoid, because it's like, well, why would I want to stay in this icky emotion? Why would I want to process this icky emotion? Why would I even want to step into the room with this emotion? Because it feels icky. But I totally agree. Like you said, but if we bypass that, then we're completely ignoring the lessons that we get to do. We completely ignore a strengthening process that we have. We completely ignore just an expansion of ourselves. And so it really does us a disservice when we ignore those more icky emotions and just hop into the rooms with the more positive ones because they feel better.
Yeah. And like, even with what you were saying about, like all of all the layers that we can feel in our emotions, and with the growth, how, like, and you focus on self-care, right? And so, and so it's like, how does one, I guess, do it all? Like, how does one feel it all? It's like,
I love that. It's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody has a different way, but I'm curious your perspective.
Well, for me personally, is allowing, it's almost like when there's an emotion that's coming up, an experience that's coming in, and it's knocking at my door. It's, let's use that example of this morning, that huge chunk of money that dumped into my business account. It's like, whoa, this is really exciting. This is amazing. Like, this really eases, there was a lot of relief there, and I'm able now to pay like myself an income to be able to help my husband and myself. And so all these positive things. And because that was knocking at my door, I opened the door and I let that emotion in and invited that emotion in, and really just allowed what it wanted to show me, right? Feeling it, all of that, relief and excitement and like, holy cow, and almost like disbelief, all those things. And so I let the door open and experience it for as long as it needs to be experienced for. And what that part of me, I'm a big parts person. So it's kind of like that movie Inside Out. Have you ever seen that movie? I think it's Pixar.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yes. Yeah, it's totally true for us too. We have these different parts of us that might be experiencing different emotions. And so there's this one part of me that's super freaking excited about all this money, and it's knocking at my door. So I'm going to listen to this part and really understand, okay, what needs to happen to really honor this emotion. And it was, I need to celebrate. So I got up and celebrated. I did a little jig and like a little twirl around and was like, woohoo, money to me. This is amazing. And then, right, it was okay, that part of me felt really honored for that celebration. And then I went back to this more, I don't even know what the word would be, with that grief that's there in my life right now. That part of me is really needing a lot from me right now. So I went back to that part and it's like, okay, I'm not ignoring you. What do you need from me right now? And doing all the things. I know we've talked about that in our own coaching, is all the self-care, up the wazoo of, taking showers, taking baths, crying when I need to, feeling okay when I'm feeling okay, and journaling when I need to talk, reaching out to others when I need to. And, it's really, that's where the balance comes in, is really listening to all those parts of us, of when they're knocking at our door, and inviting them in and saying, hey, what do you need from me?
I love that. I love that you're use the analogy of knocking on the door. It's like, are you willing to allow, willing to allow it to enter? Because we can totally block it and just ignore it and suppress it, which, is not healthy.
No, it's like, the way I imagine it is like a beach ball. If you have a big beach ball and you're holding it underwater, it takes a lot of energy to hold that beach ball underwater. And then the minute you let go, it like comes bursting, flying out of the water. It's the same thing with our emotions. If we ignore them, one, it takes up a lot of energy, and they're going to bust out at some point somewhere, and it's going to feel overwhelming and not within our control.
Right.
So if emotion's knocking at the door, invite it in. Say, what do you need? Right? What can I give you? Right? That's what being, in this place of managing emotions within yourself and, this place of self-leadership is so important, is really honoring all the doors that are knocking. And sometimes there's like tons of doors knocking, right? I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
you've experienced that of like, you know, just different maybe parts of you needing different like expression of your emotions almost at like the same time.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's also important, like, not to judge it,
Yes.
like not shaming like the ones that feel icky, or like, because that can be another, like, why am I still feeling like this? I thought I've overcome it. Like I've already did the work.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge one I see pop up within myself and a lot of women that I work with, is there can be, yes, this judging, shaming, frustration of maybe, why is this emotion popping up? Why am I feeling this way? Or, I thought I already learned this lesson. Why am I
Mm-hmm.
doing this again? And it's, we don't want to be judging and shaming ourselves. That's not the work of our life, right? The work of our life is to love ourselves and, grow ourselves and be uplifting of ourselves. And when we judge and shame and get frustrated at ourselves, it locks all those doors, and we can't really come
Mm.
out and play when we do that at all.
I love that she said like it locks all the doors. It's just such a
Yes.
good visual. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and it is a hard piece, because I know, like, and I experienced this even this last week, is I could start to feel myself going down kind of that old trail of being mad at myself for feeling, I was feeling just not good about things, and I wasn't able to really step into some of the business work that I wanted to do. I wasn't really able to really be there, in my relationship and really show up. And I was starting to get mad at myself. Like, why am I feeling this way? Why? And, the more, this is where the internal journey and the strengthening comes in, is you can catch yourself sooner and sooner and sooner when you start to go down that icky path of, self-judgment. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on. There's no need for me to be mad at myself. I'm feeling this way. And even if I don't know why, because sometimes we don't even know why we're feeling icky. It
Totally.
just pops up. And sometimes we really know why.
Right.
And but regardless, it's, hey, I'm feeling this way, and what do I need to do to feel better? And if I reach to myself and do all the things for myself, and I also reach to my partner and include him in that process too,
Mm.
because I know he wants to support me. And but I know a lot of the work oftentimes has to be on my own, right? He can't make me feel better, but he
Mm-hmm.
can be in the process of supporting me while I'm helping me feel better, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I have two questions with that. One isn't a question. One is more like, as you were talking, what came to mind was like tending to that inner child,
Yes.
especially when you're like opening the door to let the emotion in. It's like, okay, what do you need? It's like, I think if we think of the inner child, then we want to take care of her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and then the second part is like, how would you communicate that to your partner? Like what you need,
Mm.
right?
Oh,
Because that can be
yes.
challenging in and of itself.
Oh my goodness. Yes. And well, it is. And this is where the art of relationship comes in, because, you're managing a lot of pieces at the same time. Like, for me, I'll go back to my example is, as I'm experiencing a sense of grief within myself, and there is, right, the inner child that's, usually when the emotions are knocking, it's because, an inner part of us, our little kiddo part of us is getting triggered, and we need to take care of it. And it's, really showing up for ourselves while at the same time not getting lost in ourselves. Because if we get lost in ourselves, then we've completely shut the door to our partner, right?
Mm,
And then this is where relationship dynamics can get tricky, because then, if my partner's feeling shut out, he's going to have his own internal process happening and then respond, and we can get caught in this relationship cycle that could either be a really positive thing or it could be a really negative thing. And that's, again, yeah, where the dance and the art comes in, is attending to me and showing up for me, while also at the same time balancing showing up for my partner and his needs as well. And it's it's a juggle. And that's why a lot of people do struggle in it, because nobody teaches us how to do that dance of, being with me, but also with you, and being with you without forgetting me. All those pieces.
Oh,
It's hard. And
yeah.
I wonder how has your experience been in relationship with, navigating that balance of attending to you? It's like, I call it like attending to the me and the we at the same time.
Oh my gosh. I think how I operate, it really depends on the situation. Like I'm such a like a journaler, and like I process a lot of stuff on my own. And like if something comes through that I want to share, then I will. And if I'm in a relationship, I'll talk to the other person about something that's happened, and just like to share, but not to, especially if that person isn't like part of the issue, you know what I mean? And even if it was like a romantic relationship, I still need to process it on my own first, and then try to bring it in a way that is that the person can receive it. Because there's been times where I get triggered and I just react, and those are the ones that don't go well. And
no, I hear you. Yeah, no reactions. And that's where, right, that process of we go down that negative path. And when we react, it means that we've already like booked it down that path.
Yeah, there's just like, and but then if it's something where I do like, okay, I have like the awareness, the adult, like the mature Michelle, then I will sit down, okay, like, come on, like what's really happening here, and how can I navigate this better? So like those are like the moments where I celebrate, like, okay, I did well.
Yes, which is good to celebrate that. It's well, and it's that piece of expressing, and part of your question you had too before is like, how on earth do we express our needs to our partner? And in a way, right, as we're talking, that isn't in a reactive place, that comes from, because reactive is when, we're being triggered. It's the little kid in us that's being triggered in some way. And it's this place of, okay, if we react from that place, it doesn't go well. Right. But if we can pull, right, it's our higher self, our adult self, the self, whatever it is that you want to call it, or right, like adult Michelle or adult Chelsea, to really run the show and be in charge of that, and not let the little kid part of us be in charge. Right. Because it doesn't go well. I know, for me, usually, down at the heart of things, that what gets triggered is our fear of abandonment and our fear of not being enough. And they usually go hand in hand. And I know for me, one of my biggest triggers that the little kid in me gets triggered is fear of abandonment. And so if we're not skilled in our own emotional awareness, then that gets poked. And one example I always use is when my husband, because he loves playing video games, which is totally fine. But it sometimes doesn't feel fine to the little kid part in me, because if we haven't been spending some time together, then it can go down this rabbit hole of, I feel the distance from him. And it's not that he's ignoring me or anything like that, but the little kid in me goes, he's not paying attention to me. If he's not paying attention to me, he must not love me. And if he doesn't love me, he's going to leave me. And holy cow, I'm freaking out. And that's what the little kid does. And if I operate from that place, then I usually go into attack mode. I start like getting mad at his video games. I point the finger at him and I say, oh my gosh, you're playing games too much. And then of course he's going to go on the defensive and defend that. And then we get caught in that disconnecting place. Whereas if we have this building of emotional awareness, where if that part of me gets poked, because it still does, and it comes in all sorts of different forms, then I can self-soothe that part of me now to go, no, it's okay. Like, he's just playing games and I know he loves me. What is it that I need right now to feel closer to him? And that is what we share with our partner. And so I would share with him, right, this is expressing the need, but we have to check in what the need is. It's like, okay, I want to spend a night alone with him and completely free of technology. It's like, okay, well, then I got to tell him that and not attack his video games. And that's where vulnerability comes in, which is a huge piece of all of this, to share with him, honey, I'm feeling like I'm kind of missing you recently, just feeling disconnected. And, is it okay if, maybe tonight or tomorrow night we spend some good quality time together, without technology, does that sound good? And then he's like, of course, that sounds amazing.
Oh, yay.
But if I say you're playing video games too much, it's pointing the finger and he's going to go on the defensive, and then nobody's needs get met.
That is brilliant communication
Yes.
right there.
Well, it takes a lot of practice, and, in all of just in anything in ourselves and in our relationships. And it's, awareness is so key. And it's like, I call it emotional push-ups. Like, we're getting stronger and stronger and stronger every time we practice it, and doing it just a little bit better. And, to have, it sounds almost simple on the outside of, to have, say, that conversation with my husband, to say, hey, I miss you. I'm feeling disconnected. It's nobody's fault. It's just the feeling that I have. And, can we, have some time together? On the surface, it's like, what, 2 sentences of something, but on the inside, it's like, holy cow, this is really vulnerable. It's vulnerable to go into myself, to even ask what my need is. And it's vulnerable to express that on the outside and put my heart out there to my husband. And it's like, is he going to receive this? Is he not going to receive it? So yeah, vulnerability is hard.
I'm so glad you said that, because I've been in the same situations where it's like, okay, I always have to like psych myself to like bring it up, and it's always so awkward to have it come out of my mouth to express what I need, even though like in my mind I kind of practiced it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh my goodness. And so I love, like, yeah, it's totally vulnerable and it's not easy. It's definitely easier to attack, for sure. Even though
yes,
we might know what we have, like, but it's sometimes it's just easier to just blame versus like, hey, this is what I need.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it goes to that piece of, again, of we avoid. It's a lot easier to avoid what's there. And, I love how you said that word blame. In, what I see that happens, I call it the triangle of blame, is if we don't go into ourselves and go into, our adult selves and emotional intelligence, we often get caught into this blame place where either we're blaming our partner, or we get caught in this place where we're blaming ourselves. Like, oh, this, we were talking about that before, kind of this judging and blaming in ourselves. And that can get us into a whole tizzy of things. And, or, if things aren't going well in a relationship, we might blame the relationship. Like, oh, this must mean that we're not supposed to be together. Or this must mean, all these negative things.
Yeah.
When in reality, nobody needs to be blamed at all. And it's a practice of, sharing those emotions and sharing them in places that feel safe, and to feel, it's almost like stepping into it more. And I love how even you said, like, sometimes they say it awkwardly, or it comes out awkwardly.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's okay. And, there were times when I was like this wobbly giraffe or something, like newborn giraffe, like on my wobbly legs, when I was learning to really express myself, because I'm used to be mega people pleaser. So expressing myself was like not going to happen. So when I was on my like wobbly legs learning to do that, I prefaced a lot of things with, this might not come out in the best way, or I don't know if I'm going to say this right, or kind of giving myself permission to not do it perfectly.
I love that. And
also kind of clue the other person in that, hey, kind of give me a little grace here, because I might fumble in this a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a totally okay thing to do, because it gives yourself some grace in the whole process, right?
I love that. Yeah.
Yes.
That's, I love the preface, because then both parties know. And I think the other person that's listening, I feel like it softens them a little bit. Like, maybe it takes the guard down of whatever might come up. Yeah. So I appreciate that suggestion.
Yes. Well, and even the softening and letting the guard down too. I think what can happen a lot of times is either we're not sharing any emotion, and so our partner is like, I don't even know what's going on inside of you, or we like bombard them with all of our emotions. And it's finding this middle ground of, expressing yourself and expressing those wants and those needs and the vulnerability, but also checking in with your partner if now's a good time to share. And because sometimes we might, like, like say right now, my husband, I know he's downstairs, he's doing work right now because all of us are at home right now. So if I went downstairs right now and all of a sudden just like started to talk to him about something, he like, that's not honoring him. Like I'm honoring myself because I'm expressing myself, but it's not honoring him or the relationship because now's not the right time. And it's probably going to reinforce to me, if I did share, might not have the best reaction because he's probably right in the middle of he's an engineer. So he has all these crazy stuff on his computer. It's my worst nightmare to see all those numbers. I don't know how he does it. But if I shared and wanted to talk to him in vulnerability right at that time, he's not going to probably have the best response. And it might, what's the word? Oh my gosh, mind blank. It's going to reinforce that, oh, it's not okay to share because he might not have the best response because it's hard because he's navigating work. And so then I might go like, well, see, this is why I don't share with him. This is why I don't share my emotions. When in reality, it's okay to share, but now is not the right time. So if I am feeling like I do really want to share, either within myself, I'm going to wait and I'm going to have to take care of myself during that time. If, now's not the time. So asking again, like we talked about, what do I need right now, to make it say to tonight to dinner time? What do I need to do to this part of me that's really wanting to express itself? Do I need to journal about it? Do I need to go on a walk? Like, what do I need to do to make sure that this part doesn't just like word vomit it out onto my husband? And also, at that time I can advocate for myself and say, hey, honey, I really, have something I want to talk to you about tonight. And I could say the topic if I wanted to. So maybe it's, because we have all this financial stuff that's happening with all the money flowing around and who knows where. And so if I'm feeling anxious around that, instead of bombarding him with this conversation, it's, hey, honey, I really want to sit down at some point to talk about our finances to make sure we're on the same page. I was thinking tonight at dinner, would that be a good time for you? Now we're really getting on the same page of when we're talking. And that means if he's not being bombarded, then he can soften himself and let his guard down for that conversation. He can really prepare himself to be open for that conversation. And I can also prepare myself to be open for that conversation. So it goes in the best way to be emotionally close in that moment rather than just bombarding each other with emotions or hiding them altogether.
Yeah, I think having like a time frame, like knowing when you can talk about it can at least calm the nervous system down a little bit. Because sometimes like I've been in the situation where I want to talk, like when can we talk? Like it just like takes over like that emotion. So like knowing like there's a time, like okay, I can do other things.
Yes. Well, it becomes this you're talking about this place that it's this limbo land. I talk about this a lot with a lot of the women I work with, especially again within relationship, because you don't want to be in emotional limbo land or in sexual limbo land. So I talk about the intimacy side of things too, and that would be a whole nother conversation. But you don't want either partner to be in limbo land where it's like, when can I share my emotions around this? Can I share it like tonight, tomorrow, next week? Never. And it becomes this anxious place, and that's not a good place to be in. Right.
Yeah, totally.
And same thing with sexually. It's, am I going to be able to be intimate with my partner tonight, tomorrow, next week? Never. And then it becomes again, this anxious place of limbo land. Like I almost visualize like floating out like movies where you're like floating out in space. They're like out of they're just like floating in space by themselves. And it's like, well, who's going to come find me? So having those anchor points of when you are going to connect with your partner, around, whether it is the intimacy side of things, emotional intimacy or physical intimacy, having that groundedness can be so soothing. And then like you said, it's like, okay, if I have this time that I know we're going to talk tonight, then I can really make sure I'm taking care of myself through that time. It feels a lot more calming. It's okay. I know this is going to happen. What do I need to do in the interim? I don't know, you can be in more command of yourself at that time.
Yeah. I mean, that's really helped me when I've, in relationships. So, yeah. And I think it's just like, it's speaking up for it. Yeah. So like, it's all about the inner leadership piece, like how do we become advocate for ourselves in relationships and navigate all of the emotions? Yeah. I mean, those are the moments of growth.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And man, I don't know, even when you just said that, like those places of growth, I don't know if you or any of your listeners have experienced this, but it's almost like, I don't even know how else to better call it, like this, you can feel like the pull to that reactive place and also the pull to that more adult higher self place.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's like happening right at the same time. Like I
Mm.
remember, this was years ago that I was lying in bed with my husband. Well, he was at that point, I think he was my boyfriend at that point. I don't remember. Time is weird. But we were lying in bed and we were having this argument. And and we had gone down the rabbit hole of we were both in our reactive places. And I could feel that, like the part of me like that wanted to go sleep on the couch. I could
Mhm.
feel it like split in my body. I could feel it like
Yeah.
wanting to go to the couch, to pull away from this conversation, to shut it all down, to
Mhm.
basically, it would continue the disconnection that my husband and I
Yeah.
had, or then boyfriend. But I could feel that at the same time as the other part of me, it was like this split, was wanting to turn to my husband and just give him a hug,
Mm.
say, I know we're not in the best place right now. I love you so much. Like the turning toward.
Mhm.
And I could just feel it, like this split and having that internal battle. And, I had that even recently of, we were caught in an argument. I'm certainly not perfect at all of this, but even though I lead women in doing this, I might be further down in the steps, but we're always learning and growing, right? There's this conversation we were having and I could tell my partner, he was being triggered about something, and he wasn't able to calm in himself. And I know in myself, if I got triggered too and reacted to him, we would get caught in a tizzy. And I could like feel it in my body, like, okay, I'm breathing, breathing, breathing. Like I need to stay in my like calm self. I need to stay in my grounded self. I know he's having like his little kid reaction right now. And I want to stay grounded so that we both don't get lost in that place. And
Mm.
it's hard because it's like this most internal strength is like trying to go run like a marathon. Sometimes it's like, okay, I'm going to do it. But then it becomes easier and easier and easier every time. But I don't know. Have you felt that before?
Oh
Like
yeah,
that split?
totally. And sometimes I choose poorly.
Sometimes I
Gonna
do
lie.
too.
Yeah.
That's part of being
Mm.
human. And that's where, again, we have to not judge ourselves. It's okay. How can I learn from this? And we can always repair it later. That's
Mm.
something that we can forget sometimes if we, choose poorly, so to speak. It's going back later, as soon as we catch it. And I even said this the other day, there was this, my way of interacting with money has been
Mm.
so much better recently as we've worked with our coach, Melanie and Lair. And it's been years that I've been interacting negatively with money and having an impact on my husband. And I apologized. And I said, well, you know what? I recognize I haven't been handling that in the best way. And I just really want to apologize. And, I really want to be doing it differently in this way. I've been recognizing that. And he was like looking at me like deer in the headlights, like, oh my God, thank you. Like,
Ah.
wow. So even though it was, been months or years, like it still has value.
Mhm.
So if you get in an argument, you can go back the next day or the next week or the next month and go, you know what, I was thinking about X time, and, I recognize that I did this and this, and, that wasn't really the best way to handle that. I
Mm.
really want to try to do it, this other way differently next time. And I just want to apologize for how I reacted.
That's
That could
awesome.
go really far.
Yeah, that's amazing. That just shows maturity, in a relationship,
Yes.
and just I think that definitely strengthens the relationship for sure.
Oh, yes. It's
Yeah,
the ownership, right?
yeah,
Taking
the ownership.
ownership, not blaming yourself, but taking ownership of,
Yeah,
oh, crap. Yeah, I totally did not do that in the best way. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. That's awesome. Um, Switching gears a little bit, because we started with just all of our emotions. Like,
Hmm.
how do we, I don't know, like live with it, walk with it.
Yeah.
I, I don't know if you read Eat, Pray, Love.
No, I haven't read it, but I've certainly watched the movie.
The book
Wait,
is
no, I did read the book.
okay.
I can't remember. I read so many books now, they all start to blend together.
The book is a gajillion times better than the movie, in my opinion. But there's this one part in her book where I think it might be near the end or in the middle. I don't remember. But she's like doing a lot of healing work. It was Gilbert, and she's in one of the islands in Indonesia. And she sat there. I think she said she sat there like the whole day from sunrise to sunset. And really like, because she was processing so much healing with her emotions, she like literally, she said that she opened up her heart and let all of the emotions come in, shame, guilt, like all of it. And she said even shame, and I don't know, when we were talking about walking with our emotions and how do we manage it, it's like that came into my mind as well. And I think that takes a lot of courage.
Yes. Well, I mean, all of the emotional world is like a courage place. And, are you feeling that the courage was to, open your heart to all of those emotions and let them all in?
Yeah. Especially like the heavy ones.
Yeah.
Like shame is a big one. Like shame is huge. And to be able to love yourself and accept yourself with the shame, all of that, that's huge for me in like self-love. But I don't know, like that just, when you're talking about opening the door for the emotion, like, I don't know, like all of that just, like, I feel like this is what makes living like real.
Oh my goodness. That is so beautiful. It's so true because, well, if we have all of these blocks to our emotions, the doors closed, whatever visual you want to have, heart closed, that's not the full expansion of our real life, right? It's the quote, it's like the easy way out. And it's the, I call it kind of like autopilot way or winging it way. It's like, it's not real. And I think the, feeling and experiencing and allowing the space for our entire heart, all the nooks and crannies, the good, the bad, and the ugly, like having that all be there and opening up to all of it is real, and it is life, and it does take courage. And I think sometimes we do open the door, and because we haven't opened it in a while, then a lot floods in and it could be overwhelming. It's almost like this, like if we have a whole bunch of like toys like stacked up in a closet, and then we open the door and it comes like tumbling out, it can be overwhelming. And which is why usually it's a lot more manageable to do it at the time that you're feeling it, so it doesn't stack up and pile up. And allowing that real space. And that's where, a lot of us haven't been taught how to do that, right? To open our heart, to feel the realness of our heart, to feel the entire expansion of our heart and who we are and what our full expression is in this world. And that's why I do what I do, is to not only continue to lead myself into doing that and finding, all the nooks and crannies of my heart and expressing that in the best way, but helping other women do the same, because like you said, that's what's real. And we want to live a real life, right? That's kind of the goal here, not to be a robot.
No, not a robot.
No.
Oh, well, Chelsea, it was such an honor and a pleasure to having you on the show. Yeah, super fun.
It's so lovely. I could talk about this stuff forever. And I just appreciate you and the depth of you and your heart, and having this podcast and sharing all your wisdom and having people like me on the show. I'm really honored. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And thank you. So how can people find you, learn more about you?
Yes. Well, the best place, so I hang a lot out on Facebook land. So the best place to find me is in my private women's Facebook group. So it's the Intentional Intimacy Women's Group. So it's a nice private group. And I do a lot of free master classes in there and a lot of trainings and a lot of goodies. So just for my lovely women group members, and it's completely free, which is awesome. And so that's the best place to find me. And you can follow me on my business page, my personal page too. I have a lot of goodies on there. And yeah. And then on Instagram, I'm at Dr. Chelsea Page, online, my website, drchelseapage.com. So you can find me in all the places, but that Facebook group is, if anywhere, I would definitely be going there.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm in that group, and it's fun. You offer lots of value. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, it's such a good group, and I can't wait to have even more and more women in it, because we get to be ourselves and love ourselves and learn to love in a partnership. And it's just such a beautiful place. So thank you.
Amazing. I'll definitely share the links in the show notes. And for those of you who are listening, please tag us if you resonated with this episode. Tag us on Instagram in the stories, and check out Dr. Chelsea Page's work. And we will see you again soon. Thank you. Join our free private Facebook group community, Sacred Emergence, to receive more connection, guidance, and support, and take part in our 5-day Inner Confidence Challenge to not only boost your confidence, but to help activate your inner leadership. Details in the show notes. Thank you for listening to the Sacred Emergence podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and thank you in advance for sharing this with others who can benefit. Until next time.